You're listening to the Legal Mastermind Podcast with your hosts Ryan Klein and Chase Williams, the go-to podcast for learning from the experts in the legal community about effective ways to grow and manage your law firm.
We're going to chat today about some changes that have been going on, obviously from COVID, and how law firms are adapting.
We've adapted. It's been definitely a long past 30 days. It's definitely like week by week. It feels like it's kind of endless, but it has given us the opportunity to work on a lot of new projects, kind of focusing on what we can do to help our clients, and then taking that data and that information and kind of sharing it with the general legal community and other marketers.
I know you've been doing a lot of research, pulling a lot of raw data, and I think starting off, I know you love this quote, so we gotta.
Do you think that everything is prefaced by this Fauci quote?
I think so.
I posted on social media a couple times already.
So I think one of the things we're getting so frustrated. I know we've talked about it. Just like all these people just having these magic solutions for this is the answer. This is going to save your law firm. This is the one thing. A lot of there's like so much misinformation, and like what makes you the expert on this? Like nobody's the expert on any of this.
Yeah, I think that it's really tough because, once things started getting rolling, people were speculating from like a scientific standpoint. Did you see those graphics that people put on social media that said like graphics said Facebook certified crisis management expert? Because it's just like there's so many people that were just giving their opinion based off of like there's only a finite amount of data that's out there. The rest of it's speculation. And then who are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to epidemiologists that have been doing this for decades, even with specialization in pandemics. You're going to listen to hopefully the CDC. So why does this information all of a sudden come from other places? How does it happen? And it's probably because it's opportunities, and it's probably because people want to jump on it with, frankly, semi-selfish motives.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to learn how I disseminated this article from the CDC or from the payroll protection program?
I mean, it's a great point. Literally, there's documentation from financial institutions and like the federal government. This is how it's going to work. And then you take someone else that's interpreting it and making it less digestible and less easy to understand because it's already been laid out in the first place. There's nothing else that you have to really interpret unless you apply it to certain scenarios. So yeah, so talking about Fauci, great quote. He had no idea how much this was going to apply to the marketing industry. But I'll read it here, and it's also on some of our blogs. It says, and he was talking about, was it hydroxychloroquine? Because I've never actually heard it pronounced. I'm not sure what it is. But
I just see the big long H word, and I'm like, oh yeah, that drug that might work or might not work.
Anti-malarial drug. It is the most effective therapy, just based off of just the speculation and then the optimism of some doctors. But basically, Fauci said 37% of doctors feel that it's beneficial. We don't operate on how you feel. We operate on what evidence is and data is. I think we've got to be careful that we don't make the majestic leap to assume that this is a knockout drug. So that being kind of said, we can apply that to marketing, and we kind of feel then that's what's been happening. It's a lot of people that are acting on speculation and optimism, on opportunity, and they're just jumping to what they're comfortable already talking about, such as social media or pay-per-click, and in some instances, of course, organic. And they're kind of like overlooking the data and analytics and the surveys that might be necessary to confirm what they're doing. And instead, they're opting for urgency and sometimes fear. And that leaves it's an issue, because it can put a lot of law firms in a situation where they're engaging in marketing when budgets are tight and there's a lot of uncertainty, that they're spending money on platforms and campaigns that really aren't going to have a return on investment right now, not in the short term or the long term. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I've heard the argument both ways. Like, hey, especially from a paid standpoint, AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, like, oh, now's the time to, strike while the iron's hot. More people are on social media. Obviously, many people stopped advertising, so advertising is going to be cheaper. Like, now's the time to really double down on what's been working. Right. And it's like, just that blanket statement. It might be true for some people, but for a lot of other people, it might not be. Like, think about like a PI attorney who's, bread and butter is car accident cases, or think about that attorney who's going after debt relief. Very different objectives. From a marketing standpoint, I can make guesses, but I know that what's really going to tell the truth is the data. And I have opinions on everything. You have opinions on everything, but for our clients, I know we're always going off raw data and surveys. We survey, like, it's a lot of times it's never really our opinion we're talking about. It's like, hey, this is the survey. We asked 500 people and this is the information we got. And I think you did a couple of surveys around. And
yeah, you're exactly. And my sentiments exactly. It's true. We did surveys, and we didn't even really need to have surveys to speculate on our end that social media, a lot more people on social media, there's more free time. People want to feel connected. There's a lot of isolation being felt. Social media is how you feel connected with both friends, family, and even people that might be strangers, but might be in a similar situation to you. We get that. Yeah, there's more engagement on social media. Ads might be cheaper. You don't even really have to get raw data to prove that. If there's less people spending money, it's cheaper. I think that the biggest gap right now that marketers don't want to acknowledge is user intent is basically the main thing. User intent and interest, and the fact that who can be using your services, who's interested in your services at this time where, I mean, look at what's happening. So the easy stats right off the bat are like personal injury, like you mentioned. People, there's a shelter in place, there's stay-at-home orders. People aren't driving around, there's less accidents. People aren't really getting arrested, except for there is an increase in burglary officially here in Seattle and probably elsewhere. But arrests are down. There's all sorts of different protocols as far as booking or arrests or who's going to be processed based off of everyone being conscientious of coronavirus spreading in jails. It just depends on the practice area, but you can't go around like you're saying and just saying like social media, it's cheaper. People are pulling out and constricting their budgets. Therefore, it's an opportunity for everyone, and we don't have to look at any other data. I guess that being said, if you want to look at this social media ads survey that was put together, we can go through that.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I have it here in front of me for many of the audiences listening. Can you tell us a little bit about the audience size and the specific questions that were asked?
Yeah, sure. So if anyone that's been listening has ever read some of our blogs that include surveys, we like to use Mechanical Turk. It's basically a survey platform where people get paid to do surveys, and then they're pre-vetted and as far as previous surveys they've done, and then their engagement and actually filling out all the questions logically. And so typically we do surveys between 250 and 500 people. We ask them several questions, they answer them appropriately, and then we use that data for things like this. And I think that's what a lot of other marketing agencies do use. It is sort of a standard as far as surveying goes, and you can use it for collecting data. You can use it for doing feedback. I know that we've used in the past when we've launched a little bit more of a ambitious website, I guess you could say, where the design is a little bit unorthodox, and we want to make sure that the user experience is still going to be what people are looking for. So we'll ask like X, Y, and Z. And so we'll use it for feedback. We'll use it for messaging and ads and whatnot. But it's great for this too.
Yeah, I think one thing that shocked me the most, so one of the questions that you asked was on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being much less and 10 being much more, 5 obviously is neutral. How often have you been on social media since March 1st? Mm-hmm. And then my personal professional guess would be like, oh man, the average person is going to say around like 8 or 9, right? Mm-hmm. But the data actually showed that it was 6.95.
Yeah, I guess like that would mean that it's more, but not significantly more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on? Are they like watching Netflix? Are they?
Well, that's what. Yeah. There's all sorts of new fun options besides social media. Streaming is through the roof. Virtual happy hours are through the roof. New projects are through the roof. So it doesn't necessarily mean all that free time is dedicated to social. So maybe that's why the uptick isn't, the 8 or 9, but it's closer to the 7. I think that the biggest takeaway though, from asking the survey specifically about social media is that, how often have you been on, closer to 7? There's one, which is interesting. And I know that I kind of messed up on this before. Like, how often have you been receiving ads? And then people have been very neutral, because it's my understanding that even if there are people pulling their marketing budgets out of like Facebook and social media ads, and then it's getting replaced by other ads, wouldn't the amount of ads always be consistent no matter what? It would just come from one place or another.
Yeah.
I felt like that was a good way to validate that the people are taking the survey seriously, because I mean, frankly, it said, I said, how often have you been receiving ads? The median was 5. The most answered response was a 5. Altogether, it was very close to a 5. So I guess that was like a pretty good test.
There's always going to be like some sort of ad showing. Like there's remnant space available always. Like one of the best marketing things I love, and I've like said like this is genius, is like when these companies come to you and say, hey, we'll get you on CNN, Fox News, all these different websites. And like, if you go to, let's say you go to like New York Times and you try to buy ad space directly through them, it's going to be pretty expensive. But at the same time, if you know what you're doing, you can buy the remnant space directly through Google for pennies on the dollar. So it's like the way they're marketing is great. The point I'm trying to get across is there's always going to be ads and there's always going to be space they're trying to sell. And it's an auction-based system, especially for display, right?
Yeah.
But keyword bidding might be a little bit different because, Google's trying to show like the best quality ads. But as far as like when you're doing those direct placements on those sites, it's one of those things where they're always going to show ads.
It sounds like a pitch that you've done in the past. But the biggest takeaway for social media are the two questions. How often are you interacting with ads on social media? And how often are you making purchasing decisions from social media as of right now? And the interaction was a 2.6, which means less / maybe a little, almost significantly less. And then purchasing decision is a 2.5, and that's less as well. That's kind of like the big missing piece of this process that's being, advertised to lawyers right now. It's like, oh, ads are cheap, they're 30% down, consumption's up, and all that might be true, but the intent seems to be significantly down. And then what's the point of doing a campaign if your audience isn't interested?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that somebody has more time on their hands now, maybe, the whole flow and the whole process of making a purchasing decision online is a little bit different. Like maybe in the past, if I'm rushed and I'm, in between meetings and I see an ad, I might say, oh, this makes sense for me. Let me quickly buy it. But maybe now I'll be like, oh, this is pretty cool. Let me research some different options.
There could be more time spent, doing the research, of course. But if there just isn't a need, it doesn't matter. Facebook ads have always, for the most part, been a push campaign, getting in front of hopefully the right audience to encourage them to contact you in a time where you feel that they might need you. I know that law firms are kind of notorious for running blanket campaigns, and they're just like, I hope that someone in my audience might be interested in what I do. And then, depending on how you build your audience and how you're targeting, you're trying to get people that are more likely.
Perfect example is like, if I saw like a wills and trusts ad right now, I'd be like, oh, you know what? Now's the perfect time for me when I have this downtime to hire a lawyer and retain somebody for multiple reasons. Like I would think, oh, maybe I can get a better deal now because they're not busy. And then I'll have extra time and the attorney will be more one-on-one, hands-on with me to really flesh out everything I'm looking for. So there's a lot of benefits too, from a consumer's perspective.
Yeah. And then there are campaigns that are definitely like pertinent and viable right now, but they're just going to have such a short lifespan. And every day we don't even really know if the peak of everything is going to be in 3 weeks or 2 months. It's just goes back and forth. So an example of something I just saw blow up on LinkedIn too is this whole like business interruption insurance. So people taking out insurance policies and then having COVID fall under what would be considered, I don't know, not necessarily like act of God, but a business interruption. And then insurance companies not honoring it because they feel like this particular pandemic is not covered in insurance policies. So that's like an opportunity that's evident. A lot of lawyers are spending a lot of time building it for a very potentially short-term campaign.
Yeah. One thing I love, I don't know if you read this in the news. So there's, one of the biggest tennis tournaments in the world is Wimbledon in London. And for the past, I think, I look and see like maybe like for the past like 30 years, they've been paying like $2 million a year in insurance for pandemic insurance.
No, specifically?
Yeah, specifically.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so yeah, so I was just looking real quick. So it said, so far they spent over this past 17 years, they spent $34 million and they're going to get $141 million payout.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, what are you banking on the odds? You're just like, I want an 8-to-1 return on this. What a good investment.
I bet so that policy now is going to cost so much more though.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely possible. I mean, the last, pandemics, I suppose, or whatever would be closest to it, Ebola and like Zika, SARS, bird flu, swine flu. There's a bunch of them. Mad cow disease. That's one. But this is one that's obviously has stepped it up and raised the bar. It'd be interesting to see how insurance policies do cover that. And I don't like the short-termness in this. A better way of phrasing that is lawyers are pretty good for the most part, and especially ones that, that we've known over the years, They're looking, a lot of things are long-term. They're expecting things to like develop. There's campaigns, we're building a foundation, building up. It's just odd to kind of see things shift so quickly to be like, no, do this now. And this is a thing that might only be relevant for 6 to 8 weeks. That doesn't even fit like in the general outlook of law firms pursuing opportunity in the first place.
I mean, I could see that argument making sense for paid, right?
Yeah.
But for something like, let's say like an SEO strategy that you're planning something out, you're trying to get somewhere a year from now, there's not much shift in strategy because you've been putting these pieces in order and you've been planning out exactly what you're going to be doing over the next 6 months to get to that end goal. So there's really not too much a shift in strategy there. It's really just sort of putting your head down, putting in the work and sticking to the plan that we know is going to make sense to get to that end goal.
I know that Spyfu isn't exactly like the hands down definitive projector of how people do their ad spend. It's just like anything else. It's like, it gauges it, uses data to kind of predict, organic traffic or what people are doing on their websites. And so these paid trends that we did for about 125 different markets / practice areas, they showed that pay-per-click trend in March has been pretty steady for most law firms. So it seems like most people that are pretty proactive with their marketing strategy really didn't pull back or spend more on pay-per-click. And so the opportunity has seemed to have been maintained. I've heard otherwise. I've heard some people pulling back in the past few weeks, but I don't even know if pay-per-click could be considered like an opportunity right now. I mean,
there's a bunch of different factors too to consider with a pay-per-click campaign as far as like changing your ad spend with the competitors fluctuating. Every single keyword you're bidding on is Google rates it on a quality score. Mm-hmm. So, if all of a sudden people are going to your ad and your landing page and they're not, they're bouncing, they're essentially like not going through with that conversion. They're going back and searching again. That's going to hurt your quality store. And in turn, that's going to eventually increase the bottom line pricing of what you're having to pay for ads. So, there's a lot going on right now. But yeah, to sort of circle back to what you're talking about with Spyfu, anybody can access the software, but it's cool to see like what your competitors, like what they're spending, what they're saying in their ads right now. I think that it's a pretty affordable piece of software. It's $33 a month, $40 a month.
Talking about opportunity, I know that we can obviously bounce around a lot in this podcast because the title of this is going to be, what we've learned so far, the past 30 days. And it's been quite the seismic past 30 days. There's been a lot going on. We've consumed a lot of information. We put out a lot of information, but there's certainly a lot of takeaways. And I think that a lot of lawyers that we've kind of been seeing, they have a little bit more downtime. If you're not doing consults, you're just, working on your current caseload. This is obviously a prime time for projects. We're talking a lot about finally integrating technologies internally, which is something we just finished a podcast not even that long ago with a team at Corcoran, and that's going to be coming up soon enough. And we were talking about how lawyers are pretty shy to implement new technologies, especially for internal processes. But when we come out on the other end of this, a lot of consumers are also going to be expecting some sort of changes with the delivery of services. So if you're going to be a law firm, both facing internal operations plus delivery of services, and you need technologies for both, you're going to really officially be pretty far behind. So that's definitely projects we're encouraging law firms to implement. And then there's plenty of things that lawyers can be doing with their own video and content. And we have some references and resources for doing that too.
Yeah, and there really is, like, take everything we say with a grain of salt. Everything's going to work differently for your specific situation or your firm. But there's so much content out there, and some of it's crap and some of it's great. So if you can take, I love it. Like when I read a book, especially a business book, if I could take away one piece from what they're saying, even if the book is challenging to read from
depends what book you're talking about.
I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. A lot of business books are copycats from other books. It's just regurgitating the same key principles. But if I can take one example away, and hopefully, like each one of our podcasts, I always hope that like somebody could take one thing away. But I think we'd be remiss if we didn't briefly mention before this podcast is over, like Google My Business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we've got a new attorney that we're working with. We can't even get their listing verified because there's no Google My Business support right now. The only thing they're basically doing right now is sending those postcards. And so
that's really unfortunate too, because it's not a virtual office. This is 100% a unique address. That one's tough. Of course, it's just suspended or suspension of leaving reviews, replying, Q&A, other functionality. To just suspend it to protect, businesses from having to get backlash for whatever their operations might be during this time.
It's a logistical nightmare they'd probably have to quadruple their team to handle all the complaints. And
oh, I can't even imagine. Probably, easier to suspend it. One thing I did see popping up is if you do local searches for certain restaurants, you can see if they deliver, dine-in, takeout. It's like X and a check mark right there. So that's cool. They're over time for some things. I'd say for Google My Business, I think that it's worthwhile to log into your Google My Business literally every single day and just see if anything has changed, any new functionality or options or fields, because you'll be the first person to hop on it. And I guarantee they're working very heavily on Google My Business right now and providing the right information.
Yeah, one thing Google loves to do is beta test. Always big companies like like the other day, my entire Facebook changed, and like, hey, you've been added to a beta program. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, give me an
ask for that. I don't want that.
I can't. I don't even know how to like post an image right now.
Put me in the current program, please.
But my point is, I might be seeing something different versus you on your Google My Business, just because Google's testing something to see the effectiveness, and that's one of the cool things. So checking that often. There's a ton of value there.
So, we've covered kind of for the paid aspect of social media. I mean, of course, there's always the organic part of social media. I would say that this is a good opportunity to establish yourself as, more of a caring part of your community, keeping things updated, talk about, what you have going on. I don't think that necessarily the paid, I mean, it's going to be a unique situation, but paid, you just know that you're going to be in front of people, sure. And it might be a little bit cheaper, but like, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And if you're doing a hard sell, free consultation, like right off the bat, I don't think that's going to go in front of a lot of people that are going to care right now. Organic is way up there, especially from a pull perspective. It still stands to be the number one confirmed source of quality leads for absolutely everyone we work with. And most people that take their marketing very seriously. And the opportunity here is that people are, I don't know if they're doubling down, but they're finding more creative ways to propel their SEO. One example I can give is there's legal assistants in some law firms that are not as busy as they typically are, but they don't, want to be furloughed or let go. So sometimes they're participating in updating their website or doing content or assisting with videos and doing some things that aren't completely out of the wheelhouse, but certainly related to kind of what they do day to day. So there's different ways you can have team members contribute.
Google has a tool called Google Trends, which basically lets you know how often people are actually typing in specific keywords on Google. And you put together this really cool set of graphics based on a couple of different keywords where you can see, like, I'm looking at DUI lawyer, the huge drop March 1st, but then, looks like it was at pretty low around April 4th, but then from April 5th to the 11th, it looks like that's shooting up pretty rapidly. That's specifically for the keyword DUI attorney. Same thing, you can just see here on these trend lines, criminal defense lawyer, large drop, family lawyer. Actually, that's like a huge drop, and it still continues to go down right now.
It's spiked. It spiked March 8th to 14th, and I'm curious why it did that week.
I know why. People are like, all right, I'm stuck here with my family.
Yeah. Same.
It goes like, maybe I should hire a lawyer in case I'm going to get a divorce or something. And then they think about it and they're like, you know what? I love my family. And this is a blessing being at home with my family. I'm not going to hire a lawyer.
Look at your speculation.
Yeah.
I like that. At least the narrative is nice. I like that. But yeah, it's true. I mean, this is all on Marketing My Market, gauging intent across marketing channels. It's towards the bottom. You can do this. It's just Google Trends. So we have to rely on this data. I don't know why it would be completely inaccurate. It's, after all, supposed to be coming from Google itself. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, you do see March 1st, you see a drop off. Divorce lawyer, even bankruptcy lawyer had a little bit of drop off. There's slightly an uptick in the past week. Car accident lawyer is slowly going down. Consumer attorney, and then I forgot. I included a couple just to confirm, like, okay, are these trends really logical? Do they really make sense? So I included the key phrases: book a hotel and book a flight. That one is hilarious.
I know. I like how that's the last one. And like literally March 8th, it's like super, super high. People are probably like, man, these flights and hotels are so cheap. It's awesome. Uh-huh. And then it just looked like the stock market crashing just straight down.
It is straight down. Yeah, that one is interesting. The book a flight, relative to the trend at the beginning of the year, it got a score of 100. on March 8th, 14th, when everyone was talking about, the deals. I need to get out of town. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to do a quarantine. And then now people are
the average over the past, year has been about, looks like around like 75-ish, right? And then now it's like last week it was 21.
Yeah, it's low. So you should check that. It's pretty interesting. We have some friends in the entertainment business doing like photography and DJing stuff. So it hurt me a little bit to see that one dropped off pretty bad. Wedding photographer and wedding DJ fell off real bad at the beginning of March, but that's kind of, it's making way back. Maybe people are just interested in seeing what kind of deals are out there. But anyway, Google Trends is a good way to confirm organically how people are going about doing their searches. So we'll use that as kind of like an indicator of how things are going. There are opportunities, if you want to call it that, for most practice areas. Some might, unfortunately, just have to sit tight, hopefully not that much longer. In the meantime, they can certainly be working on projects to position them well when things are back on track. But, if you're going to, you're hearing things from social media or SEO or Payperclick and even things that we're saying, it's just so important to do the due diligence, to just be like, what are your references? Just any sources, like anything that kind of just corroborates what you're at is just so important now, because you're like, money is online, your business is on the line. You have to make smarter decisions, not as sudden and prompted decisions. That's fine, but you just want to know what you're counting on to be the voice for reason is backed up by the research and the time they spent to come to that conclusion.
And one thing that I love here that you also include on this article, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with this, but anybody that's running an ad on Facebook, you can see all the ads they're running.
Yeah.
I know this specific example here, you use Morgan & Morgan, and I can see like they're running ads specifically targeting Lyft and Uber drivers who should be owed money, Jewel, like they're a mega firm. So it looks like there's hundreds of ads on here. It's so cool. If you haven't used a tool before, literally you can see any brand, every single ad they're running. It's a free tool that Facebook supplies. It looks like it's towards the end of the article there.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That I feel is important. So you can really go to any law firm's Facebook page, and then there's a link on the right, and it's called Page Transparency. You click on that, and then I think you do maybe click one or two more things, and you can see pretty much the whole ads library that they have. It'll probably gauge roughly how much they're spending on it, which is interesting. It probably won't be transparent about the audience they're targeting, but you'll be able to gauge like, yes, this law firm in my community, my competitor, someone I'm interested in, someone I look towards that I respect or I think is doing a good job doing their marketing. You can see how they're doing their Facebook marketing right now.
I mean, it says here, which is very interesting. Like you said, it's called Page Transparency. Morgan, it says total spent by Page on ads and about social issues, elections, or politics from May 2018 to April is $500,000.
They ain't messing around. And another thing I do mention in the article is that they have a very robust and talented in-house SEO team. A lot of people very much respect Morgan from like a business development and marketing standpoint. I definitely do, especially they're always in their backyard. They're always hovering over us when we lived in Orlando, of course. They're always in the background.
Our office downtown, it's like you look out the window, it's like a huge Morgan & Morgan building.
I know. Oh, they're on the forefront too, because their billboards, which I thought were hilarious. It got to the point where it used to be like Morgan & Morgan, we handle like PI, maybe settlements and their phone number. Then it kind of like started stripping it down. Now it just gets to the point where you see a billboard and it's just like Morgan & Morgan, like happy holidays. Or it'll just be a picture of the family. Doesn't even say who they are. It just, you see them, you know who they are, and it says happy holidays. So it's just like, you know who we are. This is what's up. We're just still in front of you. You associate with us with Morgan & Morgan. You associate with us being PI attorneys. We don't even have to do anything else. And,
I think we could do like a whole podcast on billboards.
Yeah, I haven't done that. I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
I just know that when you drive down I-10 and you get to a certain point, you see the same lawyer about 800 times.
Yeah, I feel bad for those lawyers right now that invested in those billboards. And
those are tricky, right? We didn't even think about that. But yeah, if there's even any takeaway about looking at a marketing and law firm titan in this country, one of the largest in the country easily, I mean, their Facebook campaigns are for mostly torts and like class actions. They don't do any individual things, which would make sense too, because they probably just use their branding to do that. So maybe that's not relevant, but they go all in SEO, and I'm sure that everything that they're doing and they take it seriously is looking towards the future, not anything that's like necessarily short-term from an organic standpoint. And then questions. We love hearing from people. don't we?
Big time. So if anybody wants to chat more about this or has any questions about anything we've spoken about, my direct email is chase@marketmymarket.com, and Ryan's is very similar. It's ryan@marketmymarket.com. And if you guys anybody wants to chat on the phone about anything we spoke about as well, we can coordinate a meeting.
Yep. And then there's plenty of data right on our website. So if you go to marketmymarket.com and you scroll down, you're going to see that a lot of our most recent blogs are covering what you can be doing from all aspects of digital marketing during this time.
Thanks for listening to the Legal Mastermind Podcast. If you're interested in working with Ryan and Chase, please email mastermind@marketmymarket.com. Make sure to join the free mastermind group for growing and managing your firm at lawfirmmastermind.com. Ryan Klein and Chase Williams are the managing partners at Market My Market, one of the top legal marketing companies in the United States.